Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I am your host, Todd Rosales, and I am very happy to be here with you folks. I know that I stumbled over the next C-Lab event the last time I spoke with you all. Luckily, I have it right here on my phone, so we can absolutely see when that's coming up. So folks, we are actually going to go back and do another in-person event. Of course, it will be socially distanced. We will be taking precautions, temperature checks, masks, social distancing, the whole nine. And that is going to be on March 18th at 6 p.m. at the Museum of Graffiti down in Wynwood. It is going to be a great time. We're going to be talking about cannabis research in Florida. So if you're in Miami, if you're in Fort Lauderdale, if you're in the Keys and you want to head north, anywhere you are in South Florida, we welcome you to join us. Check it out. It's going to be awesome. The following week on that Thursday, March 25th, we will have a live panel about companies moving to the state of Florida. So why Florida is so important to the overall national market. It's going to be a great panel of guests there. We'll announce that to you shortly, folks. All right. Not too many announcements for you today. This is our second show for the week. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode with Andrew D'Angelo yesterday. If you missed that episode, you can find it at youtube.com/elevateyourgrind, along with our entire library of over 120 episodes of Elevate Your Grind. Again, if you like the show, please support us. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. It is our way that we can stick around and make sure that we can continue to have amazing guests for you and dig into their past, dig into their passion, and figure out why they're in the cannabis industry, folks. Remember, this whole show is to showcase the best of what the cannabis industry has to offer to the general public. We're here to show them why we are here. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know what I mean. All right. Absolutely. On that note, I have an amazing guest today. My guest has a deep background in marketing. He's in the cannabis industry, founded his own company. He's got a great story behind it. With me, folks, with CBD, there's got to be something special. If it's not a THC company or a medical company, or if it's, industrial hemp and all that good stuff, I've gotten past the whole CBD as an industry. It's doing great, but there's so many more advancements that we can have. And looking at the company of today's guest, I'm like, sweet, I want to talk to him. There's a lot of stuff that I'd like to educate myself on, and he's got a great story. So without any further ado, please welcome my guest today, Flip Croft-Caderao. And I think I said that right because I heard you say it on another show.
Yeah, so you Flip, did, dude. That's awesome. Good research, bro.
Yeah, man. I do a very good job of eating our guests' last names. So when I heard someone else mess it up, I really wanted to get it right.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it, man. Most people don't, so I appreciate the extra effort. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I even told myself I wasn't even going to mention that after, but it's kind of hard not to. So, listen, you have a hell of a marketing background, which is why I'm really excited to talk to you, because I think marketing is a huge challenge in this industry, right? But you come from other regulated industries. From what I can tell, I know that you've marketed alcohol before, and I would say that's probably one of the closest things that we've had. Give me a little bit of your backstory, and especially if cannabis was involved there, right? I know in the creative world, and this is something I spoke to Andrew yesterday, cannabis kind of sometimes goes hand in hand with creatives. It helps them unlock their mind. It helps them really kind of go to another place they weren't before. Obviously, you ultimately ended up in this industry. Was cannabis part of your journey as well?
It was always a part of my life. My career, I started my own agency, 10 years ago here in Dallas, in general market stuff. And you're right, one of our largest clients was Anheuser-Busch, and we worked on pretty much their entire portfolio. So you name it, we did all that kind of regulated work. We had an office in Los Angeles as well. And, it was really out of that office where we picked up Raw Papers as a client, and then started picking up a few other cannabis clients. And it was at my general market agency that I started Greenlit, which was just an agency that's focused in cannabis and CBD. So, since then I sold, my part of the agency, kind of retained Greenlit, still run that. And then really last year, the idea started way back when, but last year, last April of 2020, my sister-in-law and I started Goodekind, which is a hemp company It's hemp for human rights. So an eighth of our profits, are donated to human rights organizations serving in the U.S.
So I've got an interesting question because I saw
Yeah,
that, right? And do love the fact you have that social justice component, that there is that kind of charitable component that you're giving a part of the profits. But in my specific question was an eighth of the revenue a cannabis pun, or is that just the number that happened to work out to?
yeah, no, it is a cannabis pun. I mean, I'm an ad guy, through and through. So everything has to have a few, different meanings. And so, I was always interested in doing a social enterprise as a business model. And so when it came down to like how, we were going to do that, um, you know, we just thought an eighth would be good because yeah, it's a little nod to cannabis. And honestly, Goodkind is we consider Goodkind a cannabis brand.
Yeah.
We originally wanted to get into cannabis. We will get into cannabis. That's our whole trajectory. We just got into hemp and all the other cannabinoids, because there was a lot less red tape and from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it just took less capital. So we
Yeah.
did that route.
And you're based out of Dallas, right?
Yeah, I'm based out of Dallas, and my sister's based out of Los Angeles. So we kind of run the
Okay.
company from both cities.
See, that's interesting to me because I shockingly, I don't know, even know how I did this, but I have a pretty sizable network in the cannabis space in Texas in general. I don't know if you're familiar with Shada Tarabi of Restart CBD.
Oh,
I've had
sure.
her on the show. I've watched her show. It's a very good one. And the conversation I had with her is I go, what's the deal? And maybe this is my Seinfeld impression, but what's the deal with Texas's fake cannabis industry? And I mean that respectfully, but when we look at hemp and CBD in Texas specifically, you see products there that you really don't see with other CBD companies. And
Mm.
part of that feeling to me is that because you all want to be in cannabis so bad, it's forcing you to work with, and I don't mean this in a
No,
negative way, but because
you're
it's
right.
not
You're right on the
legal
money.
there
Yeah.
and your medical program is kind of, I feel like it's
Yeah.
forcing you guys to all do what you can with CBD to figure it out, to be involved in the industry. And the positive that's coming out of it is that you are focusing on these other cannabinoids and everything else. So there is benefit coming from it. But let's be serious. If you weren't in Texas, if you were in California, if licensing was easy to get, I imagine that you would be full on cannabis, still have the CBD and the nutraceutical, but full on cannabis. Do you see that a lot in Texas?
Yeah, well, and I think the trajectory of the Texas market and the Delta-8 market growing together, I think you see a lot of that. So there's this, this kind of loophole in the system right now that, allows, us to kind of bring these products that are typically Delta-9 THC products that you find in dispensaries in California and other places. But with Delta-8 and that rise has just been huge. And yeah, it's crazy. And I think there's a lot of, as I don't know, maybe you can attest to this being from Florida, but being in a pretty red state, and having kind of the restrictions and stuff from the legal standpoint, um, I think crossing that with kind of the entrepreneurial Texas nature of like, fuck you, I'm going to do whatever I want kind of thing, breeds this, industry. It's like, we're going to still do it. And we're just waiting. I mean, the Texas industry is like, we're already building networks. We're already working together. We're already, like you said, bringing these cool products to market, and building the market, before legalization. And I don't know. I mean, the way it's going, I mean, it could survive without legalization, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's becoming so prevalent here. So
And the thing is the products that you all are putting out there, and you specifically, are a great entryway into using cannabis as a nutraceutical or using it as a medicine, right?
yeah,
Of course, we tend to go off on tangents in this, and I want to get back to your story in a second, but So I've been texting people behind the scenes and everything else. You know, I do a lot of different things in the cannabis industry, but I have this burning feeling that Texas is going to legalize a lot quicker than we all believe they are, right?
Hmm.
You talk to folks in the cannabis market. Listen, this is a wild ass guess. If I'm right,
Yeah.
uh, it's recorded on film. If I'm
Yeah,
wrong,
right.
everyone's gonna be like, well, he's wrong anyway. So I have this feeling that the pandemic, obviously with businesses going out and businesses shutting down, will accelerate the legalization of cannabis in most markets, right? Because there needs to be an increase in income, and the easiest way to do that is not even medical cannabis, but recreational, because you can tax it. The
Sure.
other unfortunate incident that happened in Texas was the blizzard. And I now realize, when I was complaining about it not being cold here, I forgot that you were in the heart of it. So I apologize for that.
No worries. I
Yeah.
had to vacate my house for a few days, but everything was fine.
And
One
here I
bus.
am bitching and I'm complaining it's 88 degrees down here in South Florida. I am certainly the jerk.
It's 70 degrees today, so no worries.
There we go. So between the pandemic, where there was a loss of income and future losses of income, and then what happened to Texas's power grid and the need to obviously raise a lot of money to help support that and keep it long term, that there aren't too many other options for Texas outside of federal relief to do so. So when you look at Texas and you have this burgeoning CBD market across the state, you have people who want it. I know this is very obscure, but you have a mouthpiece in the form of Joe Rogan, who has now landed in Austin, that is a huge cannabis proponent and can easily put a movement behind him. I just get this burning feeling that this is all leading up to the government in Texas saying, we're going to do this sooner than you thought, because, I mean, they won't say because we need the money, but because it's good for the economy.
Right.
With that being said, am I crazy, or do you think this might be true?
Man, I hope that you're right. I feel like, I think when it comes down to it, the people who are making laws still aren't making, these decisions based on economic principles, which if they did, and if it does, it definitely would be on the economic, principles. But, unfortunately, I think that, cannabis has just been demonized for so long, especially in our state, especially with, brown people here in Texas, even just with the term, marijuana. I feel like that it's so ingrained that's the last thing that's gonna happen. I think I predict the opposite, honestly. I think we're gonna be one of the last still, and I still feel like we're just gonna be waiting until legalization. And then I also believe and predict that we're not gonna get our shit together for a whole long time before, if it does become legal. But if we do and figure it out, I mean, hopefully, if people are smart, they'll lean on people in the industry, like you said, my friends here, building the industry here, because we're all entrepreneurs, and we're all, in a lot of ways, we're running business in ways way better than any government could regulate. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a mess no matter what, but hopefully you're right though, Todd, man, because I would love to be just fucking smoking weed and just slinging weed at this time,
Well, this episode is going to be video proof that one of us is right, so you can always refer back to it. So getting back to Goodekind, man. So you founded the company with your sister-in-law. First, congratulations, because I've got two sisters-in-law, love them to death. I really do. I don't know if I can go into business with them and spend family holidays with them too, but I imagine you guys have a very good relationship. So someone so close to you, how, especially, the sister of your wife, right? How does the genesis occur here? Was it just family dinners sitting around like, hey, I want to do this, you want to do that too? Just tell me the genesis story of Goodekind.
Man, Kayla and I, we're good friends. As you mentioned, I'm married to her sister. But we were really just hanging out, smoking weed, and just kind of dreaming about the future of what we wanted to do. Kayla's in the film industry in LA, and you were just thinking about, if we could do what we wanted, what would that be? I had this idea of this kind of social enterprise with this kind of human rights, kind of angle. And she was really interested in getting into cannabis and exploring that. And so, yeah, and it was really just like, how do we have it all? Like, how do we get paid to do something that we love, that we could really get behind, and also be a part of creating stuff. There's all of our products are organically grown, and so we really kind of lean into how our products are made. And in that way, I feel in our little way, we're shaping the industry, and we're creating kind of a different market, within the CBD, hemp space, and I think within the cannabis space too.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, you had your agency, you had it for 10 years, you exited. I know there's still not 100% story, but and all of a sudden you decide, okay, I'm still young, I want to continue my entrepreneurial journey. Let me start a business in one of the hardest industries in the country. So definitely makes sense. But, I think it's different this time around because with your agency, I'm assuming you had marketing experience, and to turn that into a business, it's let me get a client. Let me get a client who's going to pay me for my thoughts and my ideas and my work. But when you go now, you're with your sister-in-law and you're now starting a company that is not just a services business, right?
Yeah.
You're actually providing products. I imagine that has to be a different experience for you where it's like, okay, it's not just let me go find clients because they're not businesses. We need people to find us off the street.
Yeah.
And you being a digital marketer, I'm sure you've done that for people before, but at some point you've got to source, make, and produce products. And looking at your website, not even looking at your website, knowing your company, you're not just growing regular CBD flower, processing it, putting it into a tincture. You've got Delta-9 vapes, you've got gummies, you've got flour, you got pre-rolls, you've got crumble, you've got patches and creams and all this stuff that takes both agriculture and science to it, right? So not only are you just buying and selling something, you're actually buying raw materials, processing the whole nine. How is this experience different from your first time your first time around as an entrepreneur, as a marketing agency? What were the challenges that you saw there?
Yeah, man. And Todd, I talk about this all the time, which is awesome. And I'm so glad that you brought it up, because you're right. Being in a service, my entire career in a services industry where I'm getting paid for my time. And I'm still, doing it because I still run, that other agency. Um, but getting into products, yeah, there's a whole mess of different problems and issues and supply chain and sourcing and freaking manufacturing. I mean, packaging, all this stuff, right? But I'll tell you, the ability to kind of transfer my value to something that I can look at and point at and like hold and that's tangible. And just and to really be able to look at that from a scalability standpoint, like, when I'm making, when we're doing our big manufacturing orders, we see all the kind of value just sitting in huge boxes, right? And as an entrepreneur, I've never thought of it in that way. I've never been able to think about it that way. It's always been so one-to-one transactional. And I'll tell you, man, I don't know if I could ever go back, because I think there's something about being able to remove myself a little bit from the business, and being able to focus on those things and tinker and invent and do research and development. All that stuff is so much fun, and it's right. And it's in the cannabis. I mean, and I'm doing a lot of cannabis stuff. Like I have to dab for research, bro. This is like my life. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a whole mess of problems and challenges and stuff that I'm learning from a business standpoint. But I kind of built for it a little bit. I love learning new things. I love learning things on the fly and kind of jumping in, head first. And so yeah.
And I mean, it is just a completely different arena that you're playing in, right? When we talk about how I just mentioned, your previous business was services oriented. Now you have physical product, but even the skill sets that you had before from a marketing standpoint, you get into the cannabis space and it's like, all right, so I know how to do this. We're going to buy some Facebook ads. We're going to build the top of the funnel. We're going to do Instagram. I'm going to get some programmatic going on and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you try to run your first ad.
Yeah.
You try to run that first ad that says CBD on it or cannabis oil and anything else. And they're like, Facebook bases, right?
Yeah.
So, you know,
It's
we can't even do that for the show.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, because you know we run ads and media for cannabis and CBD companies, through my agency. So we kind of do that, every day. And I'll tell you, every day it's like, freaking guess what? We got shut down again. I mean, it's just back and forth, and it's super challenging. But the most interesting thing though is like in building my own media plan, right? Because I get to be CMO of Goodekind as well. And in building my own plan, like I'm not spending any media money at all. Like I'm doing, I'm doing a lot of down and dirty, search, a lot of website stuff, some PR and some influencer stuff. But really, when it comes down to it, it's like, it's just about developing really great products. And delivering great experience, and I mean that from the product standpoint and also from a customer service standpoint, and believing in what you do, and it continues to grow from there.
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely agree with you wholeheartedly there, and I love the reason that I love doing this show so much is because not only am I talking to entrepreneurs, but I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs that are certainly not in this just for the money. They're in it for the passion. They're in it for the plant. And listen, I'm sure you love marketing and branding and all that, but I'm sure you love cannabis just as much. And the fact that you can combine those two passions into a single job, it's got to give your life, it's got to feel great, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's purposeful,
Yeah.
And it feels like, I mean, it feels like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And there's just, the only way to that is just trying to figure out who you are and, kind of what makes you tick, and lean into that and stop, fucking caring about what other people think.
That's awesome, man. I actually, there's a quote I pulled from the interview that I watched that you did. And it was really interesting because you said something that really resonated with me, right? And I don't know if I wrote this down right, but it said that essentially we're forced to market in a way that confuses consumers, right? I mean, can you just kind of explain that to us? But are you able to start discovering channels where you can market the right way yet? Because that's what I'd love to see, where I know that there are certain people that are establishing channels and they're still small and growing, but they're starting to come around. I'm interested to know if you've been able to identify any of those, but I'd really like you to kind of explain to the audience what you mean by we're forced to market in a way that confuses consumers.
Well, like you said earlier, Todd, like, you try to run a Facebook ad with CBD in it and you get shut down, right? So what do you have to do? You run an ad that doesn't say CBD in it. So all of a sudden you're trying to market something and communicate a message that is not about what you are selling. And so when the consumer looks at that, they're like, what is this? Is this, it looks like CBD, but is it? Like, looks like a CBD drop tincture, but all the CBD words are blurred out. I'm very confused. And it's hemp extract. What does that mean? And so there's like all these hoops that you have to go through, and advertisements have to be masked in this kind of vague ambiguity, in order to kind of pass the bots, in order to pass which is ridiculous. Like we're just slinging a product like everybody else is, but I think that's kind of what I mean. And also in labeling as well. I mean, I think that, Texas has this on and off again, smokable hemp ban, which has caused a lot of people to mislabel their products and say it's not this hemp is not for smoking, it's for tea. You have to make tea. I'm serious. Like relabeling it with things that say like, this is how you make tea with herb, which you can't, it's stupid. It's not water soluble. It doesn't work that way, but whatever. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I know exactly what you're saying.
so
is
what the
I mean
fuck is a consumer supposed to think when they come in there and they're like, what do I do with this? Do I put this in a tea? I try to put it as a tea. It sucks. CBD must not work for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, hence the confusion in the industry.
And you're right, because especially considering it is a legal industry, right? And they have parameters around the legalities of hemp or CBD and the other cannabinoids, that they are doing a disservice to those businesses and the people that are trying to take advantage of it from a medicinal and nutraceutical standpoint. I'm sure, there are plenty of elderly and older people that are coming in that believe the stigma growing up, and someone in their life was like, hey, you've got to try this. Is it going to get me high? No, try this stuff. It's not going to get you high. It's just going to give you the benefits of cannabis. They come to you and they're buying, not you, but anybody in Texas, they're buying a jar of tea, hemp, if you will, right?
Sure.
And they're not doing it, and they're like, oh, this is garbage, I'm not going to use it. When realistically, if somebody had sold them a tincture or cream, it would have solved their issues. So it is interesting, those restrictions. On that note, looking at your product set, I mean, I see a big focus on Delta-9. I see a big focus on CBG.
Delta-8.
Where Delta-8, sorry.
No, all
yes.
good. Delta-9 would be,
the page was folded.
Thing. Yeah.
The page was folded. I wrote Delta-8, I swear.
Well, it's just funny, it's funny because we focus kind of in the minor cannabinoids or the other cannabinoids, but Delta-9 is the only cannabinoid that we cannot sell, that we cannot put in our products. And I mean, it's just ridiculous that this one little molecule is illegal, like comparatively to all the other things, because all of the products you go into, our manufacturing space, it looks like drugs, right? I mean, it looks like cannabis. We got carts, we've got syringes, we've got hot plates, we got microwaves, we've got like all the stuff, but because we don't have this one little molecule, everything is okay. Everything is legal.
That's crazy, man. But you guys have figured out a way to deliver a lot of the benefits of cannabis through hemp, if you will, right? I don't want to call it CBD because it's not CBD. You figured out a way to deliver those effects through hemp. And to me, that it's an unfortunate thing that it had to happen that way. But to me, that is the one benefit I see of the Texas market, is you were forced to innovate, right? Because just like you said, the same way you can't use CBD, but you can throw hemp oil out there. You're like, well, I can't sell cannabis, but I can figure out a way to make sure that people are still receiving these benefits. And whether that's, concentrating it or focusing on it, right? And especially with the focus on CBG, I certainly am not up to speed on my cannabinoids as I should be. Can you tell us what the benefits of CBG are over CBD? Because CBD is the one that's had the spotlight on it. But, reading the interviews that you've done and everything else, I think that CBG is better for many people.
Yeah, well, CBG is like super anti-inflammatory, right? So like the crumble, when you, like our crumble, when you dab it, or if you can, sprinkle on a bowl or something, it does deliver a euphoric effect. There's a lot of kind of a head high that you kind of receive from it, and a lot of it's there is some clarity, and people have reported some mental health benefits as well from it. But I think the really kind of star is the anti-inflammatory properties in our topical. With CBG, you don't see CBG in a topical a lot, but it's being researched to treat eczema and psoriasis and skin issues. And when you combine it with kind of the other organic ingredients that we have, the shea butter and the beeswax and the coconut oil, it it really kind of does wonders. I mean, it's crazy that product has been a super breakout product for us, because people have just experienced great benefits from it.
That's awesome. I'm looking on your website, and I can certainly see that. And that's, personally here, and I think a lot of us who are we'll call us legacy cannabis consumers, should educate ourselves on the other benefits of it and
Oh yeah.
products that you're putting out there, right? I mean, listen, I love smoking a joint, but if my knee is in pain, that smoking a joint's only going to make me feel better. It may not help with that swelling, where I can actually go and just put a topical on after I work out or whatever, and I'm going to see the benefits from it. I mean, you know, I imagine that's a big part of your job, because you have a lot of products out there that are unfamiliar for people, is to make sure that people are educated on what they should be using and how they should use it.
Yeah. Well, and you'd be surprised, man, like mixing stuff. So like people, especially in our kind of influencer work, because we work with a lot of cannabis influencers, and you know, them they kind of report mixing stuff. So like CBD bud with your kind of traditional weed, like in a spliff or in a blunt or something, or even in a joint if you don't want something so like you know, hardcore, maybe kind of in the morning or something. But also dabbing the CBG with Delta-9 dabs. That's a crazy experience. That's like really, really awesome. No, seriously, in the terpene profile on this crumble is just nuts, dude. It's just so great.
What inspired you to make crumble out of CBG? Because I don't know if I've seen another CBD or minor cannabinoid company create a concentrate out, except for like a tincture.
There's a few out there, you know, and you know, shout out again to the Texas market. You know, there's a company out of Houston that's H-Town Extracts that's just doing like just killer extracts, all from CBD, hemp, and Delta-9 stuff or Delta-8 stuff, and it's just, I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, yeah, it's just great stuff that you're kind of seeing in the market. But yeah, I don't know. We kind of came on the product from another Texas friend of ours in the industry. Really just like, hey, check this out. This is some legal shit that gets you high. And I smoked it. And I was like, this is great. I like this product, you know. And you know, kind of focusing in on that. But I will say though, you know, bar none, the Delta-8 in our industry, but just really as a business, has really, really taken off. And I don't know if you have any experience with Delta-8, but you know, I'll just say, just recently, you know, I'm still in a black market here in Texas, so my dealer ended up having to go away for a few years, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But anyways, I've been smoking Delta-8 and dabbing and, you know, all that stuff for the past, what, 3-4 weeks. And it's been great. Love it. You know, and it's just really funny because it's like, I'm like definitely a Delta-9 weed smoker, like through and through. And it's just nuts. It's like, oh, okay. Like, no worries here. I don't know.
So
what's your thoughts on, what's your experience with Delta-8?
I haven't had it yet, and maybe that's because of my ignorance here. You know, we have a legal market, so sure. You know, I buy the, you know, my normal weed here. But I used to do a show during the day. It was a news show with an attorney down here, Dustin Robinson. He goes by Mr. Cannabis Law out of Florida, and he texted me one night randomly. He goes, "We need to talk about Delta-8, Delta-8. It's going to be huge. I got clients focused on this and everything else." I'm like, cool, let's talk about it. And then something happened. We only did 10 episodes of that show. My schedule got busy. I couldn't do it, but he was just preaching it to me and preaching it. And I think one of his clients actually had Delta-8 ice cream. He's like, you got to try it.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I never did. So I think I owe it to Dustin, and now I owe it to you to try it. You know, I mean, I definitely, when I hear people who are established talk highly of it, I think it's something I need to try.
Yeah, well, I'll send you some. So after this, I'll get your address.
Well, that's awesome. I wasn't even fishing for that.
But yeah, but I mean, I'll tell you, it's crazy because you know, especially in edible form. I mean, think about this, dude. So in edible form, when you take it, so the saying goes, like when you smoke it, typically 50-60% the strength of a Delta-9 high, right? Without the anxiety. But when you ingest it, your body metabolizes it the exact same way as it metabolizes Delta-9. So it's really a 1-to-1 milligram substitute, right?
That's interesting.
That is Todd 100% legal. You don't, in most states, you don't need a special license to sell this stuff. So like, I mean, anyone could just sell any of these products super easily, without the taxes, without the regulation, without the red tape of Delta-9, which is, really interesting. Like I said, we're really interested in doing cannabis, and we will do cannabis once we become legal. But I know there will be tons of companies that will not do that because when it comes down to it, they're going to spend less money. I'm going to spend a lot of money in getting licensed and going through all the hoops and all that stuff. And it's going to be challenging, but I'll tell you, man, it's a great product.
I definitely got to check it out. And it's crazy. I mean, apparently everything is bigger in Texas, including the effects you get from hemp. So,
yeah, right. Crazy.
But on that note, I actually do have a question on that for you, right? So,
sure.
I've been on, and listen, I work for a company. I'm a professional. We work hard during the day. All of us do. Some of us can integrate cannabis into our daily routine. Some of us can't and have to use it for other uses. I go on and off, back and forth between integrating it throughout the day and just using it at the end of the day to disconnect. For the longest time, if I'm going to consume during the day, before work, during work, just to kind of maybe relieve some pressure. Maybe I had a fight with somebody and I don't want to focus on it. I want to be able to focus on my job. I would try to find, and I don't think this is the right terminology, I call it a pure sativa, something that is not going to make me sleepy or anything else, something that really just makes me focus. And as it wears off, I don't get a little sleepy, because that actually does happen to me a lot with sativas, like almost like a caffeine crash. So for the longest time, and also I have the other part of it. I have this really bad problem that if I happen to roll a joint or something like that, I just want to take a hit or two or three, just get to the right spot so I can concentrate on work. But sometimes it just starts burning so nice. And then I get addicted to the deep breaths and I go too far, and I'm a little bit more, we'll call it elevated, than I should be for the task I have at hand. So I've always been looking for something a little lighter that could probably help me out. I feel like Delta-8 might be right where it needs to be.
Yeah, I would suggest either like a THC CBD blend, like a 1-to-1 or something like that, or like a Delta-8, which is like 50-60%. And the cool thing is, and kind of finding a pure sativa, I think that totally makes sense. The challenge is anything from a flower standpoint is pretty much a hybrid, right? Like everything is crossed with everything. So you're not going to get any of those pure kind of effects. But if you don't mind vaping, you do have this ability to kind of mix terpenes with distillate, and you could do that with Delta-8. And actually I describe Delta-8 a lot of times as like, THC light, because it's like, like you don't have to like, I think it's a great daytime smoke, and it's really a great, it gives you just like you said, it gives you a little bit more time to gauge, like, should I take another hit or not? Like, okay, I'm cool, as opposed to like, which happens to the best of us, right? I'm just too fucking high now.
Best of us. No, and I definitely don't mind. I definitely do not mind vaping. I've got a pen holder over here to the right that probably has more vapes in it than it has pens. So
yeah, sure, yeah. Well, I mean, so I'd suggest that if you're really looking for kind of that pure, sativa, is just really find some kind of terpene blend. You can either do it yourself or just do the research and find whatever companies, finding those blends, using those blends.
And this brings you back to your original point that in this industry, we get to do things like vape products and smoke products as research. So I'm very happy to start this research.
Great. R&D.
No, but I think that's great. I mean, that's also something I've been looking for the golf course for the longest time too, because as much as I enjoyed consuming cannabis on the golf course, sometimes when my buddy's taking a little bit too long with his putt, I overindulge, and then I'm not playing well after that, right? Because I've gone too far. So I'm actually really excited to try this, and I appreciate the recommendation. Awesome. I can talk about products till I'm blue in the face. Let's circle back, because I want to talk about, you had talked about an eighth of your profits going into charity, right? For good deeds. And I love that. I love the fact that you picked an eighth. I remember reading that. I go, well, that's odd that you didn't pick a percentage. And then I reread it. I go, makes sense. And you confirm that. But tell us about, the charity that you're sending it to, because I think that's very important. And the reason that I really like this is because for some reason, let me see if I can say this the right way, right? There's a big thing about helping out the less privileged, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of people out there feel like it should be forced, that everyone should be required to help, when at the end of the day, there are better ways to do it, right? So just giving to charities that have to also have a business component to it, right? And I'm not defending every charities, but people will look and say X amount of their donations go to the actual cause. Well, at the end of the day, they need to market, they need to pay rent, they need to pay salaries, they need to do this. So there's a hidden layer. There are some that are doing better than others, but I really think a company like yours is what we need to evolve to, because the more successful you are, the better you're doing for the cause that you're supporting as well too. So it's a win-win situation, right? So it's honestly combining capitalism with charity work, and I really hope that's the future of business in this country. So tell us a little bit more about A, why it was important to you, and B, just what you guys are doing with that.
Sure. Yeah. Like I'm an entrepreneur and I've done a lot of companies and I'm probably going to do a few more before it's all said and done. And I'm really interested in different models, different business models. And I've always been interested in the social enterprise model, kind of pre-Toms and all of Warby Parker and all that stuff. But um, I think there's something that I'm interested from, to be honest, I'm interested from a messaging and a marketing standpoint of the consumers. I want my customers to, uh, I want that to be a difference, make a difference for them. I want that to mean something, to them. Um, so, uh, so I just kind of take it from that angle, but but also I've got a heart for human rights. I mean, I've worked with the nonprofit that we're donating to is Dig Deep, and they provide running water to the 2.2 million Americans that don't have it. So I worked with Dig Deep for the past few years on their board, and just realizing that there's so many human rights violations that are happening just within these borders, and how we really feel like when you get in here, you realize that I guess by no surprise, it's the most marginalized. It's those are the ostracized, those minority, the poor. It's all of those people then pushed away from these fucking Americans. They don't have water, and they're American citizens, and they're just not even on the grid. Like the pipes just don't go to them, and no one has fucking cared for that. It's bizarre, and there's a couple million people dealing with this issue, so I think giving back is important, but I really think tying your capitalistic choice in where you spend your money and where that money goes, I think is really, really important. I'm kind of an capitalist, so it's really challenging for me, but I do believe one of the best ways that we can kind of right the wrongs and establish equity in business and in the world, and especially in this industry, is where we spend our money and where that money goes. Who in the end, whose pockets is the money from your freaking weed and your carts and your gummies, where are they going? And I think that hopefully we're coming to a reckoning as a country, and where that, like I said, makes a difference that in someone's purchasing decision, so yeah, we're going to try to hopefully ride that wave, and we're going to be there for those people. And some people, might not give a shit about that, and that's fine too. And that's cool. You can buy your weed somewhere else.
No, I mean, listen, nothing's better than making a purchase and having it go to a good cause. I can tell you personally, I'm one of those people. Every time's the grocery store or Walgreens and someone's like, "Do you want to donate $1?" Like, I can't say no. It's like, and I do it every time, and it's because I'm like, this is such an easy way to donate to charity. But I don't think about it, so I know that this may sound weird, but people are inherently lazy, and you have to do your research when you want to do good in the world, because you have to make sure that, to your point, where's the money going to end up? Well, I had mentioned the charities before and I kind of defended them, but there are some shitty ones out there, and there are some ones that are not doing the right thing. So the average American has to, or the average person has to do a decent amount of research to make sure that their contribution is going to the right place. So if there is the lazy person in me, if I can be like, wait, you're doing something good and all I have to do is buy your products, sweet, two birds with one stone, I'm in, right? So I can certainly see the advantage there, and I hope most people follow suit. I don't want to get to the point where it's like, well, I'm going to buy from him, I like your products better, but I like his charity better. So, maybe there's a way to figure that part out, but I definitely think it's a model. And looking, and not to call this out, but you guys are a female and minority owned business, and there is a push to get more folks like you in business. I think, you are doing a service to your community just by being in the position that you're in, showing, hey, I'm just like you. I come from your community, and this is where I am because I worked hard. I didn't listen to the people who told me I can't be here. I didn't listen to the people who said because of the color of my skin or my name or the way that I look that I couldn't do it. I just did it. And you can do that too, and that's something, it's hard for me to say because of who I am. But when I look at other communities and everything else, that's what I'm starting to notice, is that folks within that community need to go back and say, hey, you can make it out. This is how you do it. Don't listen to the people who are telling you no, whether they're your friends or your family or society or anything else. And I think the two of you being in that position, woman-owned business, minority-owned business, are an inspiration. And then you go even further and you're like, oh yeah, not only are we an inspiration, and obviously you wouldn't be bragging about that, but we're also giving to charity as well too. So I think it's great, man. I hope that more people follow suit.
Yeah, well, and on that, I think that there's been a lot of I think thoughts about how we bring products to market as well. And so, we source from, we make a point to source from minority and women-owned manufacturers and farmers as well. And so it's been, trying to create this this capitalist model where it's really against the grain, I guess, a little bit. It's definitely against mainstream. I will say it's so interesting as we talk to people in the industry from our sources and our farmers and everything. And it's like, oh, it's funny. Like, I only get to talk to white dudes. And like, and they're like, oh, it's great to get a woman on the phone, or like,
yeah,
we've done that just multiple times when we're working with, and it's, I think, to harken back earlier to the in our conversation, I think working in kind of the alcohol industry and working in a kind of the larger industry, the larger top, Fortune 500 brands, and just seeing where power lies, and it's crazy how these decisions that affect so many people and products that are fucking killing us, and poisoning us and putting in the system, and where it's just a handful of good old boys, making decisions for all the rest of us. And I think it's crazy though, trying to untangle that and trying to find a path. I will say it's super hard, dude. It is super hard to source from minority and women-owned farmers and manufacturers. It is a challenge, especially, on top of, because they're underfunded. They're like, they don't have the they don't have the resources. A lot of them don't have the innovation. We have a lot of stringency on our products and how they're grown and all that stuff as well. So you put that layer on top of it. So we're like really finding this like really niche parts of the industry and trying to bring those to market, which has been super challenging, but super worthwhile and super fulfilling.
But it's challenging, but you're doing it. And that's the most commendable part, is that you're actually doing it. You're making an effort, even though it is hard. And even though it is challenging, you're making the effort to do it. And I would like to think, and again, this is the assumption of the guy who's the camera and the microphone, that because you're helping them out and because you're giving them business and you're doing business with them when other people won't, that there will be some loyalty in return. And I'm not saying they owe it to you, but you're building a very big relationship, a business relationship. And the orders that you're placing, especially if it's a smaller underfunded farm, could be life-changing to the owners of these places, right? Where, a small order that to some of these larger companies could be a negligible amount is life-changing to the family who owns that business. And I think long-term, that's going to benefit you. And I don't mean to say like, you got a great business move there, but because you're putting good out to the world and you're helping somebody and you're changing their life possibly, that there's going to be a loyalty there, and they're not going to try to pull one over on you or go behind your back and do something like that. And I think that's the worst part of the capitalistic society that we have, is that people will do whatever they can to make a dollar, and loyalty, is not really there anymore. So I hope that happens. And I hope everybody kind of looks at the long-term effects of how we do business and who we do business with, because that's really where the benefit is. I had a conversation with somebody, maybe it was Andrew actually, when Harborside went public, and he's like, I had to get out of there. And I go, I don't understand how you can run a public company. You look at Elon Musk on the Joe Rogan show, takes a puff off of a joint or of a blunt, and his stock tanks 8%, right? Because he took a hit off of a blunt in a legal market. A guy who is sending people to Mars and the moon and electric cars and digging tunnels. You don't think he's doing a little bit of drugs, people? I mean, come on. Yeah. Look at the ideas.
Well, yeah, and goes to show you how fucked up the system is, that like a dude could smoke a joint and cause the thing that we base our economy on to change. That is crazy. That's nuts, dude. Like, it's nuts.
So, I feel like because of the publicly traded markets and the longer that companies have been in it, after 80, 90 years, how many more moves can you make to really squeeze out another ounce of profit so your shareholders are happy, right? So that's why public companies scare the crap out of me. And I don't know, maybe, I don't know if I feel this way or I'm assuming it, but I feel like that's what's brought out the worst in capitalism. And then we take a step back. Someone like you come in, and I know you're not the only one doing it, but you're like, okay, I'm a capitalist, but I'm going to be successful. I'm going to work my ass off, but I'm also going to make sure that I'm taking care of people. And I hope that comes back around to benefit you all. And I hope that is the model that a lot of young entrepreneurs will follow going forward.
Me too, man. I hope so. I will say there's a lot of people in this industry that care a lot, especially issues around equity and things like that. But there's a lot of brands that are trying to do that, or that are trying to give back, and they're trying to kind of weave it into their story. And I'm kind of with you. I hope we all just continue to push towards that direction. We have an awesome opportunity, I think, in starting a new industry that we can make it different. We can make it different. I'm a pessimist in this regard, and I do not trust authority. So I do not think the government's going to get it right. But whatever, we're still at least going to be able to smoke weed in peace.
I've said that so many times in this show, where I said straightforward to the camera 100 times, federal legalization scares the shit out of me because they're not going to get it right. And
well, especially for businesses, like for the consumers, your weed's really going to be really expensive, and you're gonna have to jump through a few, hoops and stuff like that. You might not be able to get it, mailed to you or whatever, but really it's the businesses. It's like freaking, dude, all my clients in California that are making tons of money they're not making money. None of them are. There's too many things that you have to pay for. Extra things in your business. It's not viable. It doesn't make sense, which is why there's all in California. It's just big cannabis now. It's just big brands. It's like it's Anheuser-Busch all over again, but just with weed now, that control the entire market. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's super challenging. Hopefully that won't happen.
We have, I mean, listen, you're talking to someone who's in Florida. With the exception of one license down here, every single license holder is an MSO, or they were recently acquired by an MSO, right? So we have one, we had one plant was independent. They just got acquired by Cresco or merged with Cresco. The Flowery is the only truly independent family-owned brand we have down here. Other than that, and listen, they all do pretty well, but like you said, it's not a free market and the little guy can't compete. I was actually looking at New York, right? Because New York is threatening to legalize rec, and clearly because they need the money and their governor is not doing so well in the news right now. But there are 10 licenses in New York, again, all owned by MSOs. So you look at these limited license markets, you can't participate unless you're a multi-state operator, unless you've got not even 7 figures in the bank, but high 8 figures or mid 8 figures, right? So it's interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because here in Florida, listen, and I'm okay. I understand the MSOs got their head start. They're doing a good job. They're putting good products out there, but a free market makes everything better, right? It makes better products. It drives prices to where they should be. And I would love to be able to see, we're an agriculture state. There's no reason why all the farms can't start participating in this. So,
well, yeah. And then looking at the farmer's model, but it's like, the agricultural model, I think people look at and see that it's too co-op-y, it's too farmer owned, it's too there's subsidies for these poor farmers. Like, people are like, no, we don't want that. No, let's give it to the rich white dudes over there. That'll work. I mean, that's really what's happening. I mean, it's exactly what's happening in freaking every state. It's a huge challenge, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're gonna try to be there. We're gonna try to fight. We're gonna fight the good fight, but it's gonna be challenging, especially and if you're successful, then someone's gonna show up with some money on the desk saying, all right, you're gonna sell out. And then, like, guess what happens? You just bring it all goes back to the same place then. It doesn't matter,
It's crazy to me, because I talk to a lot of people that, they talk about how much they hate corporate cannabis and everything else like that. And there's always a part of me in the back of my mind where I'm like, what happens the day what happens the day you're successful and someone shows up with a check? What are you going to do? Because if you really, and that's what I never really asked anybody that question, but I'm always interested to say, because, you work your ass off, you build a company, there's going to be some rich white dude that's going to offer you money. And what do you do at that point? Right. So it's interesting, man. I agree with you. I think as long as everybody who's in the industry, as long as we continue to fight it, as long as we, when I say fight it, it's advocate for it, talk to the lawmakers, get involved in that process, sign the petitions, do everything else that you can. And if we continue to do the good fight, will this industry be perfect? It'll never be perfect. No industry will, but at least we can get one that's heading in the right direction, and we can keep pushing it there.
Well, yeah. And as consumers, shop small, and shop local, and stop buying everything on Amazon. Like, there's things that we could do our money does have power if we all spend it. And Robin Hood will tell you, we are powerful if we all work together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we really can. And in so ways that we will be censored, or we will be taken it's ridiculous. It's like the rich people always win, but if we do that, and I think if that carries over, and hopefully, and I'm excited from a branding and marketing standpoint, I'm excited to see these Florida brands come out, these Texas brands come out, these Miami freaking Art Deco branding, or whatever, like really like cool shit. I think there's a lot of like Miami Vice vibes we can get into, with the brand and stuff, but I think, just really, I think leaning into the culture and local and, supporting our neighborhood businesses, just like with everything else, just don't buy, just don't buy the sellout weed. That's all you got to do.
I agree, man. Well, listen, I've hijacked over an hour of your time, dude. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'll be honest, I don't have plans to come to Texas anytime soon, but let's look at the conference. Let's look at the conference calendars, man. If we're ever in the same city, I would love to link up, hang out, burn one for sure, man. It'd be a lot of fun.
100%, dude. I'd love it.
Absolutely, dude. Well, before I let you go, let's get the plugs in, social media, where they can find the products, all that
Oh,
good
yeah,
stuff.
sure. All the plugs. Capitalist moment here. Goodekind.com. It's GOODEKIND.com. And we're social media kind of everywhere, most notably on Instagram at Goodkind. Yeah, that's it. Oh,
Awesome.
Here's some great news. Wow, we didn't talk about it. Anyways, there's a vape mail ban. Anyways, we are discontinuing our vapes being sold online, and they're only going to be sold in retail stores. So they are going on sale all this next month. So our vapes, Delta-8 vapes, CBD vapes are on sale.
I saw that. So it's my show. We don't have to end it right this second.
We can talk about it, man. Trust me, it sucks.
So funny story. So I work for a marketing technology company, and one of our clients made us aware of this. He sent me an article, and what was crazy to me is in the $2 trillion stimulus package is a provision that bans the shipment of vaporizer devices through the U.S. postal system. And I don't remember if it's a fine or a tax or something that anybody like UPS, DHL, and FedEx, if they ship them, they have to pay a shit ton of money. I actually saw UPS announce that they're no longer going to do it.
No one's doing it.
It's crazy to me that a bill that is designed to put money in the hands of Americans that are suffering includes some bullshit like this, man.
It's just like broken system, man. It's like, because this last bill, they do it, they have to get the shit in before it closes, right? Because they know it's going to close because there's a time pressure, right? Because they don't want the government shut down, right? So that's like, so they sneak this stuff in, and it goes that's why it's so big. There's all this like random stuff in it. Because everyone sneaks, every congressman's like sneaking in their little shit in there. And this is in there, and it's just terribly worded. It's super broad, and it wipes out all nicotine. It's supposed to be in the umbrella of like keeping kids safe from getting mailed e-cigs, right? But it's overreaching into any product that's vaporized, basically.
Yeah.
So our whole industry, the Delta-8 vape industry is huge, right? I mean, the online, it's just like a huge market, and it's just about to be crashing down. You're going to have to go to your neighborhood retailer now. So go to your vape shop or your CBD store or whatever.
And that's the crazy thing to me, because there have been not ancillary, but accessory companies in the cannabis space that were operating well before the legalization of cannabis that focus on vaporizers, and they built themselves into very, very big businesses. And this is affecting their main income stream. And that's crazy to me. We actually have cannabis businesses that sell devices that operate outside of the dispensary space, that have been operating freely and have been doing a great job at making sure everything is safe. And they are going to lose the majority of their business, right? Yeah, you can still go buy a PAX or a Jeep NGO cartridge or everything else, but go try to buy that battery off their website. It's not going to work anymore. And that, I have the faith that our industry will either fight it or figure it out, because we've figured how to get around every other rule. I don't know how you're going to do it. But it's really disheartening that a bill that's going to help so many people financially is also going to hurt so many people financially, at least from a company standpoint.
Yep.
So, yeah, man, I knew we got the promotions out there. Everybody go follow at Goodkind. I wish we ended on a happier note, but at the end of the day, this is the real world, and we've got to deal with these issues. So Flip, Thank you again. It's been great.
Definitely, Todd. Thank you so much for having me on, man. It's been great.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody at home. This has been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. If you missed any part of this episode, it'll be live on our YouTube page at youtube.com/elevateyourgrind on Monday morning. Of course, if you want to check out all the amazing things that Cannabis Lab is doing, check us out at joinclab.com. We've got those events, the in-person one in Wynwood on the 18th, and then the virtual event on the 25th. You do not want to miss those, folks. We're done for the week. We'll be live again with you on Tuesday at 7 p.m. right here at facebook.com/Canna Business Group. This has been Elevate Your Grind. We're out.